Hey, hey, Blue Table fans! I thought I would just give you an update on kind of what's going on. Hey, do you want to pop in for this?
Sure.
Just say hi. This is my son, Jonah.
You may have seen me before.
He's working in the company with me.
Hi.
A master painter.
Yes.
All right, any comments for the fans?
The paint still tastes good.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, he licks his brushes. Like, I don't know, I'd say maybe 25% of artists do. Are you eating in here?
What?
What you doing?
Just hanging out.
Oh, you're hanging, well, yeah, you should hang out. So right now we're in Blue Table Painting International Headquarters, which is awesome. You've probably seen some snippets in the background. And I run it very quietly, very peacefully, no drama, and it's beautiful. We got about 25 or 26 projects going right now. And that, by the way, is a really ideal amount. But definitely could use to fill about 4 slots right now. So if you have something in mind, plug, that would be really awesome and we would love it. We're working on a big old red and ivory and gold high elves army. It's part 2, a pretty large part 2 for a definitely large part 1. We've got some, what is it? Oh my gosh, the things. We have like 3 Custodes projects that we're working on. One of them is this giant army, specialty bases, magnetization. It's going to look really cool. It's black with gold and turquoise as accent colors, and it's going to look premium. And we're working on, some, hold on. I can do this. We're working on a Dark Angels army. Yeah, you know what? I'd have to look at the list. And by the way, I do have a publicized list of everything we're working on. I keep careful track of where everything is in the different stages. And I look at it almost every day, update it at least a couple times a week. And yeah, there you go. I'm working on my Tau. I'm actually having a game with a friend this Sunday. You know what? Speaking of which, let's talk about battle reports. People always like, why don't you do battle reports again? Why? Because it's depressing, guys. There's so many good companies doing it so much better that basically there's no chance to catch up. The golden age of doing whatever on YouTube is gone. That has sailed. It's only like this insane production value. And frankly, I don't have the time or inclination to keep up with that, or the equipment. So maybe in the liner notes, you guys should tell me why I should be doing better. Like, come on, really? You want to see my battle reports? The old, kind of the shaky cam ones, or that I just sort of piece it together with no editing? I mean, geez Louise. So my Tau army is 3D printed. And the reason I did that is because no one will buy a 3D printed army. It's weird. I've been around for a long time, guys. And I don't know how Games Workshop does it. They pull off this mystique somehow that their stuff is valuable. And I can't get past it. Like it, you know, somehow they do it. And frankly, their stuff is really good. I see a lot of contenders. They come on, they charge onto the scene. Some of them do have longevity, like Mantic Games. But it's like their aesthetic is like, it's hit and miss. And Games Workshop has hit and miss too. Like, I'd say about 10, maybe 20% of the models they put out are like, ugh, not so great. But a lot of them, it's the coffee machine. That thing at night creeps me out. It's always like crunching and moving and whirring, like somebody's in here, like a ghost. Ah! Day before Halloween, right? So, yeah, tell me in the liner notes why the heck I should do whatever it is. why the heck I should do battle reports. But I have a friend coming this Friday, going to play him with my Tau. I love my Tau. They're 3D printed for the most part. Sometimes I just like the GW models better. And it's interesting. It's like disruptive technology interests me. And of course, I'm just waiting to get annihilated by 3D printers that do color printing to a certain level. And then that, of course, will be the end of custom painting. I mean, some people will still do it, but it'll for the most part, it's gonna dry up. And, ooh, guy, what else? Yeah, I should have come a lot more prepared for this ramble. So, my many apologies. Oh yeah, so I think I've got 2,500 of that Tau, which I've shown you already. And I'm I have a Catachan's army. The 10th edition basically blew up my Catachans. Why? Because Catachans can only have, they can have 2 flamers in the group. And that's it. And it's, quite frankly, it's not that great. And they were way better off before they did in, like the rough fixes that they did in 9th edition. Little did we know that was as good as they were going to get, because it's pretty bad. And so I've relegated them to kind of science fiction figures right now. It's not like I can't really make a very good legal army. Why? Because I don't have a zillion flamers, and frankly, a zillion flamers aren't that great. And so if I played them as Death Corps, Death World, see, it's close. That would be awesome. Hey, let's talk about other games. Oh, let's talk about Elans. Sorry about that. So Elans is my role-playing / miniatures battles game. And as many of you may know, I finished my 400-page Elans player handbook. And that can be had by subscribing to my Patreon, or maybe just emailing me and asking me for it. And it's a copyrighted work. I am super excited for that. I've never done a copyright before, but now I have one. They give you like a little certificate in the mail. That's pretty awesome. Very proud of that. So the alpha playtest player handbook is out. I'm going to be starting to playtest it soon and make some videos explaining how the game works. And I also am about 100 pages into a monster manual, and I'm pretty excited about that too. It's good. It's real nice. My patron saint, Gary Gygax, will be very proud, I think, of the great progress that I've made. So, well, I don't have anything else to talk about. How are we doing on time? Good. Yeah, let me talk about the races in Elans. So, Elans is sci-fantasy, and it's set on a primeval death world called Os. And there's actually a planet out there in Orion's Belt that I based it on. So basically, it was, oh geez, yeah, and I have what's it called? A world book that talks about like billions of years ago, the elder gods came and they had lesser races on the planet and how those have interacted and eventually gone extinct, and so forth and so on. And so humans are relatively recent introductions to the planet. And oh my gosh. So what happens is there's 2 dimensions. There's the astral sphere, and then there's a physical world, material sphere, like a galaxy in this case, our galaxy. And in fact, Earth figures into the history of my game. So there's a race of demigods called the Trivosans, and they do extensive body modification, and they are usually 7 to 7.5 feet tall. And common body modification of them is to elongate the ears. So they are kind of like in terms of the feel, like the elves of the race, but they're denizens of the astral sphere, and they build these giant cities. This goes back to, wow, the late 80s. I was writing all of this and doing adventures and running my friends through it and stuff like that. So a lot of these concepts came from that time. The astral elves, I called them. Of course, I've transmuted them into basically their own type of race called the Cetrans. I said Trivosans. So one of these Cetrans has a noble house, and his name is Trivosa. So those that follow him, they're Cetrans, but they also are Trivosans. And typically, Cetrans will have like a chalky skin color, purple, blue, parchment white, green sometimes. And of course, they have different, not sub-races, but sub-philosophies, like how they approach life. And the challenge with them was to write a race that was inhuman, or maybe I'd say superhuman. Like if they have like these godlike thoughts, well, how can I, a mortal, write about those and explain them? Well, I do the best I can. And so basically, the Cetrans live off of emotions, and in a very real way, they feed off of them. So what they do is they find habitable planets, and they send these lotus ships, enormous ships, to colonize these planets. Not with themselves, but with humans. Humans are biological terraformers. And I recently found out that even though I thought this was an original idea, it is not an original idea. It's been done in science fiction before, that basically humans are the invasive species. And of course, in science fiction, they're the invasive species of Earth. And so there you go. But anyway, so they show up, these ships. They set out terrestrial races. So bears, foxes, horses, cattle, all of those things are actually Cetran-type animals that are designed to take over a planet. Yes, I get it. It's incongruent with how we view life evolving on Earth, but that's sort of the conceit of my game background. So the astral sphere is actually really small in distance, but it equates out at a much larger scale to the actual galaxy. So a short amount of travel in the astral sphere is a long amount of travel in the physical galaxy. So the Cetrans colonize worlds, usually using humans, and also using a technology called coding towers, which is like it's like trees, how the roots go out and then another tree pops up. So these towers form walls around the human lands, and they between them, and they also have these sort of biological android type creatures called coding priests, and they are like they tend the land. So as the story goes, Trivosa's house had one of these worlds being terraformed, and they sent out all their ships, but for whatever reason they were forgotten, and most likely just for the inscrutable pleasures of they themselves. Like they just don't bother with it. But Trivosa gets beat in this military action that he undertakes. I don't want to go into that. And so he's on the run, and he remembers this backwater like farm, I guess, that he started. Yeah, I'm going to explain more about that. And he and his people retreat there, and of course they don't want to be found at this point because their enemies are in hot pursuit. And in sort of the time frame, they go to this world, Os, and they find out that, it's been 6,000 years have passed. So a lot of this terraforming has happened on a giant island with some subsidiary islands. It's twice the size of New Zealand. And so he gets there. He names the continent after his youngest daughter, Elans, and that's where it gets it. And so the Trivosans set up on this coastal town, up on these cliffs. They use their hyper technology to make this amazing city, and they begin exploring this world like, well, what the heck happened in the last 6,000 years? Well, it's not great, because the whole system has gone off the rails with weird priesthoods, eldritch knighthoods, all sorts of different sorts of creatures, and the coding towers have become corrupted, and kingdoms have risen and fallen in that time. And the humans, well, okay, so that's the first one. That's the what are called Trivosans. And Trivosans, some of them have been afflicted with a disease that takes away their powers, that weakens them. It's called the unraveling, and it literally gives them like patches on their skin. But they're still incredibly powerful. So if you play a Trivosan as a player character, that's where you start. So otherwise, you would be basically starting out as a demigod. And so let me see here. So the Trivosans, as the humans terraform the planet, their thoughts form another dimension that's very real. They don't go to it. They don't know that they're building it. But as more and more, when it gets to a critical amount of 1 million humans, it forms this sort of secondary dimension over the surface of a planet. And it takes a lot of them, many more than the first million, to create an ethereal sphere over the entire planet. And the Trivosans, they exist in both of those dimensions. And so when they look at humans, they see the emotions coming out of them, and they can stand nearby, and they have an organ that's invisible because it exists in sort of a different dimension that comes out like a snake or a proboscis from the upper palate of their mouth, and they literally slurp out the emotions of nearby humans. And humans are programmed to just love the Trivosans. So Cetran and Trivosan are kind of interchangeable. I hope I made clear the difference between them. In the rule book, if you want to be a Cetran, one of these beings, these amazing creatures, you are a Trivo. You're part of Trivosan's tribe. So, the Trivosans basically create humans, terraform planets with humans on them to create something that they can literally eat. And the humans use, oh wow, I am running out of time now. The humans are provided with this special stone called emerum, and it sort of stores their emotions. And the Trivosans go and they collect this for their own use. And that's kind of how these guys, the Cetran race in general, operates. And so when a Trivosan shows up, the old programming of the humans kicks in to just love and serve them. And but of course, a lot of the humans have gone off the rails for reasons which I will explain later. Wow, there's a lot to, literally it would take like a couple of weeks to read this whole book. And so humans are different. So Trivosans, humans are run differently, have a completely different suite of powers. There's a sub-species of humans called ignobles, which are completely the opposite. That they both have like reality-bending powers, probability powers. Every one of the Elansian races are unique somehow. Like they have I'd call it a gimmick. They have some aspect of the rule set that they mess with. And with humans, it's probabilities. And humans are generally very positive creatures. Uh-oh, gonna go over. All right, guys, thanks a lot. That's sort of my introduction to lands. And there's lots of different races. There's orbs, shepherds. You can literally make anything. So, so instead of picking race and class, you can pick a race or you can just make one up. There's plenty of background story for that. And it is a miniatures battles game too. So that is something that I'm really eager to show you because it's interesting. I've been paying attention for these many years. I've got a lot of great ideas about system and have really put it together, I think, very nicely. And it's definitely not a game for beginners. It's like if somebody liked Pathfinder and thought maybe they would go to the next level with that, or even D&D 5th edition, and wanted something crunchier, a little more maneuverable. Not crunchy for the sake of crunchy, like rules bloat and just like a zillion things to memorize, but more of a cohesive system that also gives a lot of depth. So usually in lands, you're building a character not up to get more and more powerful, but you're building a character out, up as well, but you're building it out to have more and more options and make them more textured tactically. Because believe me, like if you've gone to a Warhammer tournament and you were able to play your turns in under 3 hours, well, this is you can do lands too, because making a character is like making an army. You've got a lot of different options, and in terms of character building, it's your class is just the powers that you pick. So it can go bananas with the options that you have. I think there's like 700 powers in the basic book. And the other thing is, come on, Sean, you can do it. Oh, you have human land. So the place that you're from is basically, in a way, like a class. But of course, you can pick multiples of those using one of the powers that are in the book. So really, it's very super customizable. It's a lot of fun. Making a character is quite an adventure. And when you make your first level character, it's like making a third level character in another game in terms of like all the different powers and stuff that you have right away, maybe as high as 5th level. And I made a character recently. Well, I'll talk more about that next time. Thanks for tuning in. I guess that's what I really wanted to talk about. And later on, we'll cover some different subjects.